Welcome to the deep dive. We take the material you, our listeners, send in, and we really explore it, aiming for, fresh perspectives and a deeper understanding of things you're curious about.
And today we're jumping into something really fascinating. Session 82 of the Law of One. It's channeled material from the entity Ra.
That's right. One of you sent this in feeling there was some really profound wisdom packed in there, so our mission today is to go through it, like, question by question.
Mm-hmm. Trying to unpack the layers, find those beautiful insights in Ra's words. We're aiming for a really positive, clear understanding of these ideas.
Yeah, exactly. This session gets into creation, consciousness, why we're here, basically. So whether you've read this stuff before or it's totally new, we hope this dive gives you something valuable.
Definitely. So where should we start? First question.
Let's dive right into 82.1. It asks about the instrument's condition. Ra's answer is super brief. It is as previously stated.
Yeah, and what's interesting there is just the consistency it implies. You
Yeah.
know, it suggests Ra is constantly monitoring the channel's well-being.
Right, making sure the conditions are optimal.
For you listening, it kind of highlights the care, the responsibility involved in this kind of communication, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. It sets a mindful tone. Okay, 82.2. This one explores ways to maybe boost the instrument's physical energy without breaking the contact.
And the specific suggestion is whirling water with the spine erect as a potential help for, like, back pain and
The
energy.
soul pain, yeah.
Right. And it shows this subtle link, doesn't it, between a physical practice and what Ra calls energy distortion.
Hmm.
It hints that even simple actions can affect our energy state, maybe help with discomfort. For you, it could be a little reminder of how connected your body and energy are.
Yeah, that mind-body connection and how gentle practices can help a nudge towards like holistic self-care.
Exactly.
Okay, moving to 82.3. This is a personal one from Jim. He's asking about his inner balancing work progression.
Right. He lays out this sequence: patience, then unconditional love, then self-acceptance is whole and perfect.
And finally, accepting himself as the creator. And he wonders, could he just aim for that last step? Would it be more efficient?
And Ree's response here is really key for understanding inner work, I think. They sort of warn against seeing it purely in terms of results, saying efficiency can be, well, misleading here.
Leading, yeah.
Ray emphasizes that you really need to understand to acknowledge your own distortions, your patterns, your shadows, before you can genuinely embrace that wholeness, that creator self part.
Bray uses that great analogy. However, the architrave must be in place before the structure is builded. Can you unpack that a bit for us? What does that mean for, our own path?
Sure. Think of the architrave as like the main beam resting directly on top of columns. It's foundational. So in this context, it's that foundational understanding of your current state,
Okay.
your habits, your beliefs, the things you judge in yourself. Rowe calls them distortions. They shape how you see everything. So before you can build this grand structure of self-acceptance, especially accepting your own divinity, you need that solid base of self-awareness. You can't really build something lasting on shaky ground, right?
Right, makes sense.
So for you, it means embracing that deeper part of yourself requires looking honestly at where you are right now.
That really helps frame it. Self-awareness is the bedrock.
Okay, shifting gears now.
Ah.
Question 82.4 goes cosmic. It asks us about previous octaves of experience before this one.
Yeah, the questioner assumes intelligent infinity had already gone through previous octaves.
And Rawl confirms it, but tweaks the language slightly. Suggests infinite intelligence is maybe more informative.
It's subtle, yeah. But infinite intelligence perhaps better emphasizes that this intelligence is boundless, all-pervasive. Infinity isn't just an attribute, it's the nature of the intelligence itself.
Okay.
For you, it might just be a pointer towards the truly limitless nature of, well, the source of everything.
So sticking with that huge scale, 82.5 asks if Ra knows how many previous octaves there were. And Ra's answer is just beautiful, I think. As far as we are aware, we are in an infinite creation. There is no counting.
Wow.
It really pushes past our human ideas of time and numbers, doesn't it? Gives a glimpse into a reality where those limits just don't apply.
Definitely. It's humbling. For you, maybe it inspires a sense of just how vast and mysterious everything is. Beginnings, endings,
Yep.
they blur.
Okay, 82.6. Here, the questioner suggests that at the start of this octave, infinite galaxies appeared simultaneously, spiraling out of a void.
Ra basically says, yeah, that's the gist, but clarifies two things.
Right. First is simultaneity. In an absolute sense, maybe everything is simultaneous, but our experience unfolds sequentially. So Ra suggests thinking of creation seeding from a center outwards might fit our perception better.
Can you give us an analogy for that? Simultaneous existence unfolding from a center.
Okay, imagine maybe a point of light just expanding instantly in all directions.
Correct.
Every point in that sphere of light exists right from the start, simultaneously. But if you were inside that expanding sphere, your experience would be moving away from the center over time. So while creation might be all interconnected and simultaneous in the now, our journey within it feels like an unfolding from a source point.
That helps make it a bit more concrete. And the
Yeah.
second clarification about the word void.
Ah, yes. Ray corrects void to plenum.
What's the difference there? Why does that matter?
Well, void sounds empty, like nothingness, right? But plenum means fullness, abundance. It suggests the ground of being isn't empty, but packed with potential, with energy.
So it's a shift from emptiness to infinite potential.
Exactly. A really profound shift. For you, it could mean that even what looks like empty space is actually just teeming with unmanifest possibility.
That is a powerful difference. Okay, 82.7 follows up with a hypothetical. If you watch the octave begin through a telescope, would you see galaxy centers pop up and spiral out at roughly the same rate?
Ray points out this is a bit confusing because creation is hierarchical, almost fractal-like. There isn't just one center expanding. There's the center of infinity. Then centers within that, like galaxies, star systems, even consciousness itself. And each grows from its own center outwards.
So the idea of one uniform rate for all galaxies appearing is just too simple.
Yeah, it overlooks the multi-layered complexity of it all.
Okay, so 82.8 zooms in on our own galaxy, the Milky Way. Was the first thing we could have seen a sun-like star appearing?
Ra clarifies here. The first manifestation of the logos, the creative principle in a galaxy, isn't usually a single star. It's more like a cluster of central systems.
A cluster.
Yeah, these energetic clusters then generate outward swirling energies, and those energies give rise to more energy centers, which become the stars we see.
So a concentrated beginning that radiates out. And 82.9 just confirms that these central original things are clusters of stars.
Ra confirms it and adds a really interesting detail. Stars closer to that beginning, closer to the initial impulse of the logos, partake more directly in the one original thought.
The original blueprint, sort of.
Kind of. It implies a gradient.
Yeah.
As the galaxy unfolds outwards, the connection or expression of that original thought might become more nuanced.
Which leads right into 82.10, asking about that gradient. Does participation in the original thought decrease as you move out from the center?
Ra calls this the plan of the one infinite creator. That one original thought is described as the essence, like the harvest of all the creator's previous experiences of itself.
Okay.
So to know itself even more, the creator projects parts of itself into the plenum, into that fullness. And each part, each emanation gets free will to explore self-knowing in its own way.
So it diversifies.
Exactly. It's a gradual process.
Yeah.
Different parts of the creator end up partaking, maybe less purely, in that original thought. This allows for incredible diversity and refinement of experience.
So the original idea gets more complex and varied as it manifests. And the goal is self-discover for the creator.
Precisely. Ra really stresses that the creator isn't just making stuff out there. The creator is experiencing itself through every part of creation.
Okay. Now, 82.11 asks about the very first division of consciousness at the start of this octave, this galactic experience. What was its form or condition?
Ra points back to earlier material, saying the harvest from the previous octave was the creator of love, manifested as mind, body, and spirit.
Ah, okay.
So that form, the creator experiencing itself as love in mind, body, spirit, that can be seen as the first fundamental division. Consciousness emerging with love as its primary characteristic.
Then 82.1 tries to get really specific. How did this first division manifest here in our octave? How did it move through densities? What were the experiences of the very first mind-body-spirit complexes, like from the start until now?
Yeah, and Ra seems to sense the questioner might be getting a bit tangled in the details here.
Roy notes the queries seem more fragmented than usual for the questioner.
And suggests maybe a more general overview would help. And this is a really crucial point Ra makes. A lot of creation actually manifested without individualized consciousness as we tend to think of it.
Oh.
The creation itself, in its unified state, was the consciousness, the logos, a kind of collective consciousness.
So before individual beings like us, there was this overarching unity. The fabric of creation itself was conscious.
Exactly. And that period of timeless evolution is the backdrop. Against that, individual logo, the sub-creators for stars and planets, started shaping their own realms. They use that harvested creator consciousness to explore self-knowledge within the structure of the densities.
which Ra says are fixed for each octave.
Right, and Ra uses that lovely image of a growing, flower-strewn field to capture the unified nature of it all.
So what about the first beings that did emerge as distinct mind-body-spirit complexes? What was their experience like?
Ra says they were relatively simple, structure-wise, and they experienced a kind of singularity. They didn't have the forgetting, the veil that's characteristic of our current third density experience.
No veil.
Yeah. But even then, the inherent lessons of third density learning about love were still present because of the density's specific vibration and the eventual step up to fourth density.
Okay, so 82.13 sketches out a hypothetical progression. These first beings in our galaxy move through densities, maybe coming out of second density on early planets, which formed from first density, life in second, then third, emerging from that.
And Ra says, yes, hypothetically, that's a correct picture of the general flow through densities. It matches the overall model of how consciousness evolves on a planet.
Then 82.14 asks, well, did that actually happen on planets near the galactic center? Maybe on many of them.
Here, Ra admits they don't have perfect knowledge of specifics before their own group became consciously involved. They compare it to learning history, there can be distortions.
Sure.
But based on their understanding of how creation works, they say the questioner's idea aligns with that, so they hypothesize it's correct.
This brings us to a really interesting point. Question 82.15, it asks about third density before the veil. What was the purpose of physical incarnation if there was no forgetting? If consciousness was continuous?
And Ray's answer is quite direct. The core purpose of third density incarnation, even without forgetting, was the same as it is now: to learn the ways of love.
The lesson is inherent to the density itself.
Apparently so. It's built into the vibration, regardless of memory continuity.
So 82.16 tries again.
Okay, if consciousness was continuous, how did the teaching work? What was the mechanism for learning love in a physical life without forgetting? Ray asks to answer indirectly here.
Yeah, sensing a chance for deeper aid. And in 82.17, Ray explains that the nature of third density itself provides the lessons, the experiences you have, especially with other selves.
Oh, okay.
That provides the learning whether you're a simple mind-body-spirit or a more complex one like us. The creator learns through all his parts, and every entity has stuff to learn, especially about relationships. So the dynamics within third density were the teaching tool, even without the veil.
The lessons were in the living, in the relating, not just prompted by forgetting. Okay, so 82.18 asks about societies before the veil. When service to others was the only real natural path, what were things like? Ra describes it as, well, creating a most pallid experiential nexus.
Pallid, meaning?
Kind of pale, lacking vitality. Learning was slow. Without the contrast, the dynamic tension that the potential for service to self brings, the drive for growth, for really understanding love deeply, was much weaker.
Huh. That's counterintuitive, maybe. That a lack of opposition could slow learning down.
It is thought-provoking, isn't it? So 82.11 asks about technology in those societies. Were they advanced? How did intellect develop? Ra first notes, infinite diversity always exists. But yes, they state there were many highly advanced societies, technologically speaking.
Why was that easy for them?
Because manifesting what they wanted was easier. They were in a state of more constant potential inspiration, not held back by the complexities and limitations that polarity and forgetting introduced later.
So easy manifestation. But what was missing?
Ra says there was a lack of a certain will or gusto or élan vital, that inner fire, that passionate engagement that comes from navigating duality and challenges. They were less complex beings in that sense.
Interesting. And 82.0 confirms these societies did develop space travel.
Yep. They went to other planets, other systems. The capability was there. But maybe the why, the depth of the drive behind it, was different.
Which leads to 82.21. The questioner suggests the logos, the creator principle overseeing this, realized an experiment was needed, something to create a richer experience, the experiment of polarization.
And Ray confirms this. They explicitly state that previous third density cycles lacked this crucial ingredient, polarization.
So entities were just kind of repeating.
Yeah, repeating cycles without much forward movement. There wasn't a strong pull to polarize one way or the other. The idea was to deliberately make the potential for polarization, for conscious choice, much more available.
Okay, this gets to the heart of it. Question 82.22. If service to others was the only natural way back then, but entities still struggled to really achieve it enough to, graduate, what was going on in their minds? Were they aware they needed to polarize? Why was it so hard?
Ra uses a really powerful analogy here. Imagine people who are just divinely happy, blissful, content. They have very little motivation to change anything, right?
Okay.
Ross says the constant, overwhelming awareness of the creator within themselves created this total sense of security, like being permanently connected by an umbilical cord.
Total security.
Yeah, and in that state, no particular act of love felt overwhelmingly important. No pain felt terribly scary. So there wasn't much drive to really strive for service or to consciously work with fear. Those are the very engines of polarization.
It's like being so comfortable, the motivation to push boundaries just isn't there. 82.23 compares it to people now who are born into like extreme wealth and security.
And Ress says, yes, within the limits of the comparison, that analogy holds. Perceived lack of need can sometimes dampen empathy and the drive to serve.
Okay. 82.24 asks if they had things like healing or life reviews between incarnations back then before the veil.
Ross says the basic structure was there, but the need for healing, as we think of it dealing with harm, imbalance wasn't really the same without strong negative polarization,
So less need to heal because less harm was done.
kind of. And this lack of needing to understand harm and healing became a concern for the Logoi, because it meant a whole area of self-knowledge was being left, well, undone, unexplored.
Got it. 82.25 expresses confusion about incarnation and the time between lives before the veil. Like what was different besides the physical body? What were mental states at death? Why review if consciousness wasn't interrupted?
Grant clarifies something important. It's not like some part of the creator audits your life. Each incarnation is the creator exploring itself.
Right.
The review at the end, the test, Rat calls it, is built in. It's for that part of the creator, the soul, you could say, to digest the third density experiences, look at its biases, and then choose conditions for the next life, either consciously or automatically.
So even without a veil, review was key for integration and planning the next steps. Okay. 82.26 asks, during that review back then, were they aware they needed to polarize to graduate to fourth density?
Ra says, yes, that awareness was present during the review between lives.
Which makes 82.27 really puzzling. It asks if that awareness somehow got diminished when they incarnated back into third density, even though there was no veil.
And Ra's answer is emphatic.
Yeah.
Distinctly incorrect.
Wow. So they knew, even while incarnate, that polarization was the goal.
Yes. Which brings us right back to the core puzzle in 82.28. If they knew they needed to polarize towards service to others, and that awareness was constant, why was it still so hard to actually do it sufficiently?
It seems like a contradiction.
Ra confirms the questioner is really starting to grasp it.
Mm-hmm.
And they continue the school analogy. Imagine a student, fed, clothed, safe, no matter if they do their homework or not.
Okay.
They know study's important, but playtime, mealtime, vacation, those are way more appealing. There's no real consequence driving them to excel. It was similar before the veil. That overwhelming security, that constant connection, just lessened the urgency, the desire to make the effort needed for polarization through active service. Most only try to excel when there's a strong reason to want to excel.
It really boils down to the lack of a strong why in a state of constant ease.
Right.
Okay, last couple of questions. 82.29 asks about the 50% plus service to self requirement for negative harvest now. Was that threshold the same before the veil?
Ray indicates this is the last full question for this session.
Yeah.
And explains, no, the whole concept of service to self as a viable path for graduation didn't really exist before the veiling experiment.
So what was the requirement for graduation then?
The essential thing, Ray says, is the ability to use, welcome, and enjoy a certain intensity of the creator's white light, the fourth density vibration.
Okay.
Ray uses the image of stairs made of light. Moving from the third density stair to the fourth density one involves crossing a difficult threshold. It requires faith or will doing the homework of consciously choosing service to seek beyond that third density boundary. Those who didn't do the work, however nice they were, just didn't build the capacity to cross over. That was the situation the Logoi were facing.
So the challenge wasn't avoiding badness, but actively building the inner muscle to handle a higher frequency. That's a really different way to look at it.
It is. And finally, 82.30 is just the standard check-in about the instrument's comfort in the contact.
Right. And Ross says everything's fine, encourages them to stay united in love and thanks, and appreciates their care.
A gentle closing.
Wow. What an incredibly dense and insightful session that was. Session 82 really packs a punch. The layers in there are just remarkable.
Absolutely. And for you listening, maybe some key takeaways are popping out, like how crucial self-awareness is before you can truly accept yourself.
Yeah, that archetype idea.
And also how challenges, even something like the veil, which sounds negative, can actually be huge catalysts for growth.
Right. And maybe that third point, that constant ease, total security, it might actually make it harder to find the motivation for deep service and understanding.
It's a paradox, isn't it?
It really is. And thinking about that pre-veil time, it makes you wonder about the role of contrast and difficulty in our lives now. How do the struggles we face maybe sharpen our desire for love, for service, in ways that ease never could?
That's a deep question to sit with, definitely. Well, thanks for diving into this complex material with us today.
Yes, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, may you walk in the light and love of the one infinite creator. Namaste. I am you, and you are me.